And so a panic pack is any sort of a bag that's portable, and then you're going to fill it with things that have been clinically studied to bring us back into the body, to calm the body, to stimulate the vagus nerve, and combat panic at some of its roots. And these are going to be things that you can touch, like fuzzy things, pokey things, maybe fidgets, a worry stone or crystal that you really love. And then there's going to be things you can smell, and so you might get a cotton ball, put your favorite essential oil in it. Find something that can be a positive association when you're activated and the yuck is happening, and then once you're feeling better, you sniff the other scent. So then you can tell your body now we're in happy time.
My mission is to empower women to fearlessly embrace and live their authentic lives. You already know that your nervous system is the intricate network of your brain, spine, and nerves, governing everything from your thoughts and emotions to breathing, sleep, digestion, and movement. You've likely heard of the fight or flight, but what many people don't realize is just how sensitive this system is and how easily it can become dysregulated. When that happens, it doesn't just affect how you feel emotionally. It can quietly influence your body, your energy, your relationships, and a sense of safety in the world. This conversation isn't about quick fixes or suppressing symptoms. It's actually about healing at the root. It's about meeting anxiety with curiosity rather than fear and learning to walk with it so it no longer runs the show and takes over your life. Because anxiety doesn't appear out of nowhere. It's always responding to something, sometimes subtle, sometimes long-standing. And once we understand what it's responding to, we can begin to feel more grounded, present, and free. Which is why I have invited my guest today. Dr. Nicole Cain is a licensed naturopathic physician and a clinical psychologist specializing in trauma-informed medical healthcare. Her work focuses on helping individuals heal anxiety and mood disorders, particularly anxiety and bipolar disorder, by addressing the root cause rather than just managing the symptoms. She's the author of Panic Proof, which I have right here, the founder of the Holistic Wellness Collective, where she blends neuroscience, psychology, nutrition, and nervous system regulation to support emotional resilience and long-term well-being. Dr. Cain, I am honored to have you on my show today. Welcome to Female Fluence.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Me too, me too. And I have to say, so I have the book here. It's normally this type of books with a lot of science and psychology, it's overwhelming, at least for me. But this is actually the way you've written it. I was really impressed because it's actually very easy to read. The diagrams, the way it's divided, it's very conversational. So it's not your typical scientific book. And that's what I really liked about it because it's really it's a self-help and easy, even though at the beginning you just think, oh, this is going to be just overwhelming. So great work.
Thank you, which is such a victory writing a book about panic and anxiety
Yes.
that isn't panic and anxiety inducing.
You don't want to cause panic.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. That's great. Okay, so for those meeting or hearing about you for the first time, what's the journey that brought you here beyond the highlights of everything you've been doing? So tell us some details about your life.
This book is the book that I desperately needed growing up. And through a series of ups and downs and difficult life experiences, I found myself going into counseling. And I remember there's a few of those kind of moments, like the forks in the road, that really changed where I was going in the direction. And when I was in counseling school, I was doing a preceptorship at a rehab in Lake Forest, Chicago. And we had young adults, teenagers that were coming in that were struggling with substance. And there was a girl sitting next to me. She's maybe 15 years old. I was a group therapist, and so I was managing and running the group. And we were going in a circle and talking about what is their drug of choice and how long have they been sober and how are they doing. And she's sitting next to me and it's her turn to go. And in her hand, she's holding some gigantic monster Red Bull caffeine drink of some sort. It's 8 o'clock at night. She's drinking it and she's talking about how she's struggling with cocaine. And her biggest concern for that week, for that group, is that she's been struggling with a lot of anxiety and restlessness and insomnia. And so I'm looking at her and I'm like, okay, we have lots to do. We have lots of good stuff we can work on. And I'm wondering about that drink that's clutched in her hand.
Right.
And it was out of scope for me to talk about nutrition and lifestyle as a psychotherapist. And so we referred her to a psychiatrist on the team who gave her Ambien. And Ambien, for those who've maybe heard about it, that got really popular. Do you remember the Roseanne Barr thing? She was taking Ambien for sleep and then she was
Yes.
like
Yes.
sleep texting. Yeah. So this is the drug. It's a controlled substance. This is the drug that this young developing brain was given instead of talking about what might be one, not just the root cause factor, but a contributing factor to her symptoms. They didn't talk about that. And that was a fork in the road moment for me, is the conversations that we're having and who's the one responsible for that. And I felt like I was a part of the system that was complicit in in it's in medicine we talk about do no harm, and I felt like I was doing harm by not doing more. And so then I went to naturopathic medical school. But the difficulty with that is there's another fork in the road, is when we talk about naturopathic medicine, we can look at it in two ways. One is how I was largely trained, is you look at the symptoms are problems, but instead of treating them with pharmaceuticals, we use natural remedies. We could talk about lifestyle, we could talk about nutrition and supplements and lab testing and herbs, maybe even acupuncture, but we're trying to solve the problem of the symptom. And I became the expert of solving the problem of the symptoms. I was really good at it. I was one of the top people here in Phoenix for referrals for integrative approaches for, as you said, bipolar and anxiety, until that fork in the road occurred where I had my own personal nervous breakdown, where I was having horrible anxiety and I wasn't sleeping and doing all of the right things. I was eating a plant-based diet, I was receiving acupuncture, I was meditating, I had a rich spiritual life, I was um you name it. I had someone pour a third oil on my third eye, like I did all of the
Everything.
things, everything you can think of. And my anxiety was getting louder and louder. And I was like, how can I suppress this? It is so agonizing. I'm losing weight. I stopped having my period. I'm not sleeping. I'm worried I'm going to have a heart attack. And that fork in the road led to a complete deconstruction of how we look at symptoms and looking at what does the trauma informed research actually say, as opposed to what are we being taught in medical school, what are we being taught in counseling school, and in the larger conversation, what does the research actually say? And it was very much the opposite of what we had been told. And that's what Panic Proof is all about. And that's why I'm on this mission to have conversations with people like you to spread the word that the way we've been approaching it is really quite in opposition to what the clinical studies are suggesting, and to share with people what we can do instead. So if you're listening to this conversation and you were in that fork in the road that I was, where you've done all of the things and you feel so hopeless and so despairing, is that I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're listening. And hopefully by the end of this conversation, you'll feel ready for the next chapter. You've got this.
So, Dr. Cain, was this book really your journey to heal yourself? Was that the result? Like, is that what happened? Like it, so did something trigger you going because you were successful, you're doing, you have all these patients. So what, did something trigger it? Because it's like, we always say like, we need to look for the root, right? Like something
Yes.
happened. And you don't have to go into detail, obviously, but I'm just wondering.
Yeah. I'm an open book, pun intended. So we
Okay.
can totally go into it. The book, well, I did all of this work and kind of went into hermit mode. And so I was doing a lot of self healing And the book came many years later. I think it came 10 years later.
Okay.
And I ended up writing the book for two reasons. One is that I don't believe that true healing should only be for the 1%. It could be very expensive to see a out of network doctor. And so I wanted to make this information accessible. And my second is that with clients, I repeated myself all the time. I was explaining these same concepts, asking the same questions. And so a solution is if I could put this down in a resource that someone can get for free at the library, or they could buy it if they are so
And they can
inclined.
reread it and highlight it and look at it
Yes.
over because they come at like that's at least how I am. I go and I'm like taking notes because by the time I leave, I will forget
Yes.
everything you've told me.
Same. I'm the same way. I'm a very, it sounds like you are too, like a very tactile learner.
Very tactile, very. I take no.
Yeah.
I'm always like I would be made fun of like when I even went to like PTF meetings, I was that mom,
Yeah.
with the notepad taking notes, and everyone's like, "What's wrong with her?" Like, what? I'm like, "No, no, no, no. Like, I need to like this is the way I remember things. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wrote this book for people like you and me, where there's a lot of space in the book to write stuff down. And there's quizzes that you could take and self-assessment checklists and recipes, and you could circle things. And then by the end of the book, you will have created your own panic proof protocol so that it takes it out of just conceptualization where,
Yes.
we all have big ideas, but what do we actually do about that? You walk away with the book with something customized to you to
Yes,
bring to your
it's your
doctor.
resource. It's really
Yes.
well written. You begin your book with a metaphor of the weathered house, which is such a powerful reflection of the human experience. So I wanted to take a moment, and I have to tell you, when I really enjoy a book, I pull it out and I read parts of it during my
Mm,
podcast. So I just wanted to let you know. Okay. Over the years, so okay, imagine a house that has weathered many seasons and witnessed the comings and goings of multitudes of people. Over the years, the house has seen its share of storms. Some were traumatic and violent, breaking windows, eroding the foundation. Others were filled with lightning that sparked the growth of beautiful flowers and trees. Some seasons were quiet and restful, while others felt lonely and still. Still, others felt overwhelming and unsafe. Every visitor makes a mark on the house. Some leave behind personal belongings such as furniture, artwork, or photographs. Others make changes to the house's layout. Some pass through the doors almost invisible, leaving footprints that fade slowly over time. Some call the house their home, making the space a reflection of their own identity. Other houses were built with light and love, but by hands that had no skills. So those houses have fragile foundations and thin walls. Still, other houses were built and deserted. These neglected houses are found in despair. Every house, no matter its unique story, will settle, shift, groan, and adapt to the world outside and to the lives lived within its walls. You are not just living in a house, you are the house. Your physical, emotional, and mental space is constructed with materials passed down from your ancestors, influenced by the external factors that have been exposed to, and shaped by the people who have entered and exited your life. Each person's house is unique. I didn't read the whole thing because it was so long, but I just opening, I was like, wow, just that. I'm like, that is so powerful and real. And I just love that like metaphor because we don't think about it that way. Like, what we've been through, who's come through our house, what, traumas we've had through generations. So, how did this analogy came to you, and how can we learn to care for our own house with protection, presence, compassion as we move through different seasons?
I think about I think about a lot of my trauma. I often refer to it as like, oh, this happened in the red house. This happened in the trailer that I lived in when I was a little girl. This happened in the blue house. And I love imagery. I love metaphor. And I think about what we go through and all sorts of different, well, it's sort of like this kind of a thing. And the weathered house felt really honoring and really validating to the totality of what it is to be human is it encompasses maybe you had a really well intended family and they just didn't know how to build a house. And so you live that experience. And by knowing that, then the treatment may be, well, let's work on fortifying the foundation. Let's work on strengthening the walls and the support beams. And this could be in terms of maybe your family had behavioral patterns where we didn't talk about things, and
Mm.
that's the foundation, so you know about that by practicing talking about things. Or maybe your family has this foundation where they built you up to be really perfectionistic, and as an adult it's helped you get really far in life, but it also can have its double edge where you might be very hard on yourself or feel like it's never
That's
enough.
like me. Right there, right
You're like, feels like you were called out.
there.
And what a validating experience it is to say, oh, this is a part of my house. This is a part of how I was built. It's not that there's something wrong with me. I'm not doing something wrong. My perfectionism is not the problem. It's a part of how I was constructed. It's a part of my past. It's a part of my story. And then when we know about the different variables of how my house was built, how is my house tended and nurtured to, who's living in my house? Is there stuff that should be returned to sender? Or is it really mine? Have I even thought about my inner self and what I would like it to be? The conversations get richer and we could start to look at ourselves not from a I'm broken, I must fix it now, but to honoring the past. And we can even reprogram the past. We can actually change our biophysiological architecture so that we don't have to be stuck in what we inherited, but rather we can turn the page and actually start to create what we want with our hormones, with our immune system, with our choices and our relationships. The house is such a great way to look at that.
That's beautiful. It's a really good way to really just like think and just it puts everything in your life in perspective when you think back and all the like you said, the different houses you may have been through. Like really, like you moved and you went from one place where there was a divorce and things that happened in your childhood. So very profound, very powerful. How does unresolved trauma shape the patterns we repeat in adulthood, especially in our relationships, boundaries, and self worth?
Have you heard of the term? This may be new for some of your listeners. I'm curious. Have you heard of somatic re experiencing?
No.
Yeah, this is interesting. And it's a little bit more on forward end of research. So you're
Okay.
getting a lot of really more advanced stuff here today. Is that we find that when we go through something difficult, and especially if that hasn't been resolved and integrated, that the mind, the body, and the nervous system will recreate that. Here's a tangible example. I have a new puppy, right? And sometimes when somebody knocks on the door, it's a friend who's coming to play with her, like a play date, and she gets really excited, right? So she has learned that knocking on the door means jumping, barking, fun is happening. And now, unfortunately, we've ended up in this pickle where anytime she hears someone outside of the door,
Any knock.
any sort of, yeah, any knock, she's now re experiencing that response, even if it's not appropriate. Another example of this is I was having an argument. My husband doesn't mind if I share this story. I think it's a great example in relationships. Is that one time we were having a conflict and I'm going at him and he's coming at me and we're sparring verbally, and then at this moment I see his clench his fists and he stomps his foot and I'm like, "Whoa, are we 10?" And I had this feeling of irritability and anger and like, what the heck are we dealing with? So he went to counseling. He does his own work too, and came back and allowed that experience, that the way the body was responding, the way his emotions were responding, and it actually brought him back to when he was around 10 years old and had felt activated in the way that he was feeling activated in our
Uh,
conflict. So he re-experienced that because it was unresolved. And then the last thing I'll say as terms of a metaphor, is when it's unresolved trauma. Think about it like before you and I hit the record button, we were talking about how in the Midwest right now, we're recording this in January of 26, it's really cold and you must have a coat in order to stay warm and protected. So we adapt to the cold by putting on that warm coat. But then let's say you get on a plane and you go to SoCal or Arizona or Florida, you go somewhere warm, and that coat, which was necessary and protective, if you keep that on and don't adapt to the new circumstances, that which was protective now can become a problem. And then people get overheated, right? So, what we go through in our weathered house, whether it's something we inherited, patterns we experienced, if we don't continue to adapt and evolve, that which protected us can cause us problems. And so, when I was growing up, part of my story, I'm kind of curious if you resonate with this or what your story might be, is I grew up in a household where my father was a Marine and he was very authoritarian. His way or the highway, and oftentimes corporal punishment was used if us kids got out of
Mm.
line. I write about this. And so I became very adept at putting on the metaphorical coat of I have to be really, really attuned to any signs that I'm irritating him. Or what are the circumstances where he's more likely to become irritated? Or that I'm just, what do I do if I displease him? How can I respond in a way that's going to reduce his ire? And I became very good at that. So I was highly, highly sensitive, highly attuned to other people. And that adaptation was really helpful until I'm an adult and I am hyper neurotic about all of the nonverbals that I'm seeing around me as I'm trying to manage people. I'm trying to fawn. I'm trying to make myself
Are you like a
safe.
people pleaser too, right? In the
Yes.
process? Yeah.
Yes.
Because you want to make
People
sure like
pleasing.
nobody gets irritated, nobody gets upset, keep everybody happy
Yes.
because that's what you were doing as a child.
Yes. Exactly. You 100% get that. And that created a lot of strife and was one of the things that I had to reprogram. One of the things I had to go back to my house and recalibrate. That wasn't mine. His job was to regulate his emotions, it wasn't his
So
little
true.
girls. So that stuck trauma, or I would say adaptive event, it's an
Mhm.
event we have to adapt to, that was stuck until I recognized it as an opportunity to go back and do that inner healing.
Okay. Yeah, that's very true. I mean, if we think about so many different ways that we behave and how we got to where we are, there is always like a story behind it.
Yeah.
Wow. Why do we experience anxiety? Because a lot of people just say I'm just anxious, like I just experience anxiety, but realistically we've been told, and especially by you, that it's really a message, right? It's a message that our body is trying to communicate and tell us. So what message is it trying to tell you, or how do we even know?
Yeah, because the healthcare system says your symptoms are bad. They're problems to be solved.
And
Well,
here's medication, right? Like
yeah,
just numb everything.
you just read my mind. Yeah, we want to resolve your suffering. We want to make your symptoms go away, but we just haven't had enough funding for education in preventative care and listening to the body and that holistic healing. And so it's kind of like playing a game of whack-a-mole, isn't it? Where something comes up, we whack it and try to make it go away, and we get medications or we try to talk ourselves out of it. But the body, it's talking to us. And in other areas of medicine, we're really good at figuring out what the body is saying. So somebody, they have flushes of heat, they're losing their hair, they're super constipated, or maybe they even have diarrhea and they have dry skin and their heart is palpitating, their blood pressure's high. You go to a doctor, the doctor's like, we got to look at your thyroid and make sure that's okay. There's a specific test for the thyroid. And then if the thyroid is overactive, there's a designated treatment. If the thyroid is underactive, there's another treatment.
Hmm.
But with anxiety, it's just been kind of a bucket diagnosis of, are you worried more days than not? Do you have fear that interferes with your life? Okay, you're probably generalized anxiety disorder. Go to a talk therapist, try to talk yourself out of it. or take an antidepressant like Lexapro or Prozac. Or if it's bad enough, we might give you a benzodiazepine like Ativan or Xanax. And then that comes with its whole set of side effects and risk factors. And then when you stop all of these things, the problem comes back. So we know it's palliative for some people. And I'm excited because when we look at anxiety more specifically, it has a whole lot of nuance. And I'd be curious, like when you, if, and you're actually, I've watched your material for years. You're actually beautifully insightful and
Thank you so
regulated.
much. I'm honored, Dr. Kane. Thank you.
Yeah. When you get activated, maybe not anxious, but maybe even just like a little stressed or irritable, do you have an impression? Like, where do you feel it in your body?
I would say probably in my chest, like it's like right here.
Yeah.
Um, and then the other thing for me is sometimes it's like I'm into the whole like I do yoga and but I
Yeah.
start losing my voice, which because I'm an educator, podcaster, so like that's how I express. As long as I say what I need to say, but I feel my throat chakra. Like I will know when I get that sore throat or my throat, I know
Yeah.
it's like it's blocking me emotionally because I wasn't able to say or like, present myself the way I wanted to. I was limited or I was told not to. And so that's really interesting because it happens often.
Yes. And so what you just did is exactly what I teach about is you notice, okay, where is it in the body and what thoughts, feelings, sensations, behaviors, what's coming up for me? And so you notice like, oh, I'm losing my voice. I'm noticing this in the throat chakra. And then you're able to ask why, and you become curious and you become present with that, and then you're able to honor that, and you have an actual biological change. You get your voice back. And I think that's interesting versus if somebody, when they get really activated, maybe they get really nauseated and they're just, oh, I feel sick to my stomach, I have butterflies, I got to stay close to the bathroom. That part of the body may be speaking about what's going on in the gut, what might be going on with
Mhm.
the gut brain axis. So we get to ask perhaps more strategic questions. And the treatment might be a little different. So I love
Right.
that you already connected those dots.
Yeah, I mean, I've learned through the process. I mean, just I guess for myself, but just that awareness, and I try to teach that to my clients because it's like immediately I'm like it's okay, and they if they start apologizing if they're crying, I'm like no, you need to feel these feelings. You need to be aware why you're feeling them. Stop suppressing them. Stop apologizing. But a lot of people like they don't want to just for myself like if I'm having a bad day if I'm sad I'm like okay why am I like I'll go for a walk. It's like why am I sad? Why am I feeling so down? Why is my energy drained? And I kind of really check in with every part of me, and I feel so much better because I'm giving myself that safe space to say it's okay, Pearl, like you're feeling heavy and sad or angry because of this and this, acknowledge it, respect it. And it really then leaves my system because I'm allowing it to come. But most people don't even allow it. They just want to push it back. And that's why all of a sudden there's like an explosion of anger or like they have a breakdown or there's a panic attack because it's like that suppressing and just not wanting to accept or talk about these emotions and feelings.
And you're brilliant because you're doing it on a walk, which is how Francine Shapiro invented EMDR.
Oh, okay.
So that like bilateral
Yes. My
kind of,
walks are they're precious to me.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's like that's advanced trauma informed medicine. It's I feel like the more we learn about medicine, we're doing all this research, and really it's the closer you are to nature, the closer you'll be to health. And what have humans done for thousands of years? We walk outside, we eat from the earth, we stand in the sunlight, we breathe fresh air, we are still, we're not sitting in a concrete jungle scrolling through phones. And so I love that you're moving your body and you find that this is therapeutic. And I also like to tell people what you deny will amplify.
Yep.
And so you're also willing to be curious and to look at it. And people worry, is my anxiety dangerous? Are panic attacks harmful? And so they're afraid, they fear the fear. And one of the biggest myths about anxiety is that it's dangerous. It's simply not true. Your anxiety is your body doing what it's supposed to do to keep you safe. It's just talking in moments when you're not actually in danger, which
Yeah.
is that's where we want to do the healing. And I think about it on a term of a stoplight where we have the yellow light, the green light, the yellow
Oh,
light,
yes,
and the
that was
red
actually
light.
one of my questions. If you can talk about
Yeah.
the lights that you have.
So you talk about this, and when we're green, this is when we feel calm, we feel connected to other people. Some may have heard this defined as when you're in ventral vagal. So this is your happy place. You're relaxed in your body, and some of us haven't been here in a really long time. And when we get a little bit activated and our body's starting to tick up, it's releasing maybe a little bit more inflammatory factors. Maybe your testosterone's going down, maybe your cortisol's going up, your blood sugar's going up, your insulin is responding in turn by going up. You're getting this whole body shift. And this is the pay attention zone, right when we're going from green into yellow.
Hmm.
In this pay attention zone, when the body is whispering, if you
Listen.
can it's saying, listen. If you can listen to where do I feel this shift and change, and then if you can zero in on that and get really curious, it's like going into your house and looking around and saying, okay, how is the structure of my house? Have I eaten? Have I taken a breath? Have I rested? Have I uh gotten my stress out? Have I moved, right? Or if you look at the inside, is there somebody that's in my house that maybe shouldn't be here? So
Hmm.
maybe you need a relationship ectomy or you
Yep.
need some space, right? So go back to the weathered house. And if that variable isn't addressed, then the body will get louder and the whispering will turn into yellows. It'll be like, hey, pay attention. And your symptoms will amplify. And then if it continues, then it will go into red. And that's crisis mode. That's when we have an anxiety attack, a panic attack. We may feel like we're having physical symptoms, a horrible migraine.
Hmm.
And if we can reverse engineer that and pay attention when it's starting, you can often prevent the screaming to begin with.
I think that's a great way. And that takes us back to another question where you talk about your panic pack, right? Is that what it's called? So
Yes.
what is that exactly? And when do we use it? Is that during the yellow light, usually, like when we feel those little signs, some messages coming through?
Yeah, I Tamron Hall and I talked about this. This is like when she heard about this from my PR team, she was like, "You have to come on. We have to make panic packs." And so she got like all this stuff and we made our own panic packs. And so you can the people can find that where you get like beautiful footage. She did a really good job showing us how to make it. And I created this because I used to have horrible panic attacks on airplanes, which is a real
Oh.
bummer because I travel a lot for my job. And I used to sit in the fetal position and rock and cry and chew on ice. And the stewardess would just kind of give me side eyes, be like, yikes, hopefully she doesn't lose it on the plane. And so I started to come up with solutions other than taking Xanax to fly and doing it in a trauma informed way. And so a panic pack is any sort of a bag that's portable, like something like a little purse or a little fanny pack, or if you want to make one for a kid, maybe put in a little pencil case. If you're a guy and you want to be subtle, put it in your merce and put the goodies in there. And then you're going to fill it with things that have been clinically studied to bring us back into the body, to calm the body, to stimulate the vagus nerve, and combat panic at some of its roots. And these are going to be things that you can touch, like fuzzy things, pokey things, maybe fidgets, maybe like a worry stone or crystal that you really love. It's going to have things that you can taste. Sour candy. Yeah, you've been waiting for your excuse from a doctor to eat candy. Here it is.
There you go.
Sour candy, ginger candy. The really sour tastes can activate our vagus nerve at the root of the tongue. And
Interesting.
I know, right?
I
It really
love
can
sour
help.
candy, so that works out great.
You're craving it, you like naturally know. It's so good. So you're going to taste things. And so maybe you want salty. Did you see there was this big thing on TikTok a while ago? It's probably 6 months now, where people were dumping packets of salt on their tongues to help with
Yes.
anxiety. Yeah. I mean, there's a method to the madness. It can
I
be
hope.
stimulating. I don't know. Sometimes I'm like really into the salt, but I think I'd rather eat like a warhead
Yes,
something.
warheads are the best.
Yeah, instead of a
I would
packet of
have
salt.
contests with my kids, like who's going to be able to handle it. Let's do it all at the same time.
Oh, that's such a good way to get them into like wanting to do that
Yeah.
too. So I love that. And then there's going to be things you can smell. And so you might get a cotton ball, put your favorite essential oil in it, unless you want to carry around bottles of oils, but then you can sniff it. And lavender has been studied that it can, in inhalation, pass through the cribriform plate into the brain and stimulate GABA receptor activation. So GABA makes us feel happy and calm.
So is that the best one? Because I know there's like eucalyptus. There's so many ones that you hear, but
Yeah.
lavender is the best essential oil to really get you to calm. I know like it's great for sleeping.
Yeah. I think it depends on the person. Like, if you grew up in the weathered house and you had this like really grumpy grandma who had lavender everywhere,
You
it
might not
probably,
like it.
yeah, exactly. It will make you feel happy.
It's like past
You,
trauma will be triggered.
right? Like, find something that can be a positive association. So maybe
Okay.
a perfume you really like. I personally like that they've researched GABA, and rose has been really well researched. But honestly, find something that you like. And then I always recommend two scents. One is when you're activated and the yuck is happening. And then once you're feeling better, you sniff the other scent. So then you can like tell your body, like, now we're in happy time. You can start to reassociate the knocking of the door, as you think.
Yes, yeah. What a great idea. I think, I mean, especially for people who have like fear of flying, like you said yourself,
Mhm.
or even kids, if they're, I don't know, if it's like a child who's having anxiety, like the first day of school or something, some emergency, something in their backpack that they can go to, without making a big like scene in the classroom. It just as like a safety net. But that's great. I mean, just even having
Yeah.
a few of those with you, and or before like you're about to go do a presentation or something, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I have my little bag. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that would help me, like to have my essential oil or something, and just be like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah. There's a really cool exercise that I like to teach people too. And I've done this with kids and adults. And I think it's a really cool skill. And so if you're open to it, I'd love to teach you how to do it. And maybe you already know actually. Have you done havening before?
No, I'm learning so much from
Oh,
you today.
oh, this is so fun. So we're not gonna do it the full version. So for those who are listening, like you can look it up. It's called havening, like a
Okay.
safe haven. The it used to be called amygdala de-amplification, and I always like to lead with the science because otherwise people are like, "Well, prove it." You always got to prove it. And what they found is that the patients who underwent studies with trauma and panic and pretty severe symptoms that were both mental and physical, that when they received training on how to do this at home for free, by the way, you don't have to have somebody do it for you, is that they had clinically significant results as compared to people who didn't use this tool. It works. In fact, EMDR practitioners are now incorporating it into EMDR, and now it's called EMDR2. So this is really cool stuff. And I'm going to teach it to you now. So, havening, its use case is any time that there's a yuck. Maybe you're feeling the Sunday scaries and you don't want to go to work or school the next day. Or maybe you have a big presentation and it feels like the stakes are really high and you don't want to clam up.
Okay.
And maybe you're going to be flying on an airplane and you're like, can I not be afraid? So this is an exercise you can do in preparation and you can do it in real time. Obviously, you're not going to do it while driving. None of these things don't do while operating a motor vehicle, but it's two parts. Part one is where we look at the yuck, and then part two is where we reprocess the yuck. So, part one is you'll get your cell phone out and you'll set an alarm, like a stopwatch, for like 30 seconds. And in that first 30 seconds, you're just going to sit with your eyes closed and you're going to notice something that you want to work on. And let's just pick what's something general or kind of generic that maybe your audience, who deals with.
Um, I don't know. It's like you mean, and like trying to think. Like a habit that they want to enforce or
What do
Something
you,
that they have an anxiety with.
yeah, let's do that. Something they have an anxiety with.
I think probably like if they wanted to, like in a social setting, like some people, I feel like they're
Yeah.
uncomfortable to be in a setting where there's a lot of people, so they refuse to
Yes.
go. They, it's like it scares them, especially after COVID.
What a brilliant suggestion. I really, really resonate very much with that. So, what we're going to do is so for those who are like, yep, that's me. This is for me. Thank you, Pearl. Is I want you to notice a time when you felt that way, when you were in a social setting and you felt activated or yucky, or perhaps there's something scheduled that's coming up and you're feeling yucky about that.
Right.
Whatever it is, you choose your yuck, you're going to notice it. And when you notice it, you're going to be fully present with it. And remember, you only had a 30-second on your alarm, so it's not forever. And you're going to notice it. And what I want you to notice is where you feel it in your body. Maybe it's multiple places. You're going to notice what thoughts come with it. You're going to notice what emotions come up. And the neuroscience shows that as we attune to these different ways the mind and the body talks to us, we're activating those parts of the lower brain, we're activating those parts of the logical brain, we're noticing the yuck, we're waking it up so everyone's paying attention, and then the alarm will go off. We take a breath, and then we go to the second part. The second part, we'll set our alarm for maybe 4 minutes this time. And you're going to do two things during this part. One is you're going to touch the whole time. And in Havening, they teach that you can do where you dust your hands off. So for those who are just listening to the audio file, I'm putting my hands kind of in like yoga prayer pose and then just kind of dusting them off. So you'll
Okay.
go back and forth during the whole part two of this. Or some people prefer to dust their shoulders off. So they take butterfly, they cross their arms, and they dust their shoulders off. We have more nerve interventions in our face. So the one that seems to work the best is if you take your fingers, you touch your forehead, and
Is
then
this
you turn.
similar like to the tapping method? Or
It
it's because
is.
I love that too. Like
Yeah.
I'll be doing something like this, and my kids are like, "Have you lost your mind?" Like,
You're like, this is helping me not lose my mind. Thank you. Right? So, what you're going to do, and I have bangs and I'm vain. I don't want to mess up my bangs. So, I'm going to do the hands. So, during the second part, now that you're doing the touch part, you're going to activate logical brain because the research shows that when we're triggered, when we're activated and we're feeling the yuck, logical brain turns down and emotional brain turns up, right?
yeah.
So we want to reprogram that. We want to turn logical brain up and emotional brain down. And so this is like you're going for your walk, you're getting that bilateral touch. So what you're going to do now to wake up logical brain is you're going to do some mental exercises, and everybody can do something different. And so perhaps you'll count out loud from 40 to 0 by twos. And so you'll say to yourself, you'll say 40, 38, 36, 34. You'll go all the way to 0. And then you might say your ABCs out loud. And then after that, you might imagine, like, Pearl, where's your favorite store if you had like unlimited money? Like, where would you want to buy stuff?
Um, Gosh, these are like hard questions.
I
You know,
know.
I like to hang out, but you're gonna laugh. I love the bookstore. I mean, it's one of my. I
Yes.
mean, I don't know if I would spend all my money there, but I love to spend my time there just to like look at books, grab a coffee, and just relax. Like that just brings me peace.
That just sits my happy place too. So then, if I was doing this exercise with you, my third thing is I would say, okay, Pearl, I want you to imagine that you go to your favorite bookstore and you pick out 5 titles that you've been wanting. And I want you to tell me those titles out loud. And maybe for bonus credit, if you can remember the author's name, you'd say that out loud. If you're talking to a kid that loves baseball, you might have that kid do the touch on their hands and list their 10 favorite baseball players. Whatever it is, it's logical. And so then after your alarm goes off, then you rest your hands in your lap, you take a breath, and then you go back to the first phase. Because remember, this is a two-phase exercise. You go back to the first phase and you notice what's different about the yuck. And most people notice that it's changed just a little bit. And we notice that anything that changes is changeable. So we notice the yuck as it is now. We notice the way it feels in the body. We notice the thoughts, the emotions. After 30 seconds, we go back to the second phase. So we repeat that process at the touch and we do new logical exercises. Can be writing your name backwards. It can be totaling the numbers in your birthday and finding your numerology number. It could be anything, right? It could be thinking of 10 yoga poses that you love to do. After 4 minutes, then you go back, you take a breath, and you go back to the first phase and you notice the yuck. And what we would do with this is you would repeat this process back and forth until you find when you go to the yuck that you feel either neutral or maybe you actually feel something kind of positive like, ooh, I'm kind of excited to go out in public and be in a crowd. It might be kind of exhilarating. And so then you think about that and you go back to the part two and you touch and then you think exhilarating things and you notice that and you do mental math. And so now what we've done is we've activated the parts of the brain that were in a loop and the program of the warm coat was keeping you in stress. And we just went in and we activated all of those and we put the logical brain on it and we just literally reprogrammed it. You can do that in 5 minutes a day.
I love that. Wow, you just made me like very relaxed with all this stuff. I'm just like, okay, like we got to continue the interview.
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
very like mellow now, zen. This is
Me
great. I'm
too.
gonna have to re-listen to this, take my notes, and make sure I
Yes.
remember exactly the 1 and the 4 minutes and go back. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is it's such an easy technique that you can do anywhere, but very
Yeah.
simple. But it
Isn't
will
that the
it will
best?
shift your mind because yeah, the moment you do it, and all of a sudden it's like, oh well, this is not that big of a deal. Why am I so stressed out? And I love how you refer to it as the yuck because it's anything and it could
Yeah.
be for any age, right? Because we all
Yeah.
have that yuck, whatever. It's like if it's Sunday and you have a test the next day and you're a student, right?
Yeah. I love that. And it's so empowering. And the antidote to anxiety is personal power because anxiety is that fear response occurring out of the context of actual danger. And so if we get that activation and we're on a plane and we're like, "Oh, my anxiety's talking to me. I'm going to do this havening. I'm going to reprogram it. What a cool opportunity." And we start to befriend our symptoms. And the moment that we befriend our symptoms, we start to honor and thank them for speaking to us. That's not anxiety anymore.
Yeah.
And that's how we
It's
can change
having
behavior.
control, I think. I'm like in
Yeah.
that perimenopause level and fun stuff. But there was a few times that I thought I was having, like, I had severe heart palpitations where,
Yeah.
at first you think, am I having a heart attack? Is like, what's happening? But so when I finally like educated myself and learned that this is just a symptom, it's nothing. And I remember the very like first or second time I was like, oh gosh, like what's happening, And there was a night that it happened to me when I was in bed and my husband was asleep. And imagine, like, you're in bed and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, like, and it was just that, again, the awareness and me knowing and having the power. And I just told myself, this is just a symptom. It's nothing to worry about. I checked before. My heart rate was not like, it's not really happening. I'm not having, like, it's just that over and over. I kept reiterating and talking to myself, the replay and just breathing and I didn't have to wake up my husband. I didn't have to freak out. And felt so powerful when I got myself out of that stage and I was like, okay, this time I got it. It's not a big deal. We're going to just go with this amazing, perimenopause symptoms that we have to go through. It's okay. I got this. And it kind of went through my system and I was okay and I calmed down and I went to sleep. And I told my husband the next day, I go, yeah, last night I had an episode. And he's like, well, why didn't you? I was like, no, I got this. Now that I'm aware it's nothing to worry about, then I can handle it. So the mind is so powerful. I don't know how many times I have to say this on this show that like we have so much control. And if we realize it and we give credit to our brain and neuroplasticity and understand it, there's so much we can do with it.
Oh my gosh, I just am like filled with all the happies and smiling ear to ear listening to that. Because, like you said, it's control, it's personal power.
Personal
And
power.
what I love about your sense of personal power is it wasn't to make this stop, it was to be in that and reassure yourself that it's not actually dangerous, it's not fun or comfy,
Yeah.
but you can handle it. I've got this.
I got
I don't
this.
I don't need somebody to help me. Sometimes we do, but you've got this.
Yeah.
That's a really huge Victoria story.
It was. It really was. And I'm curious right now with the world that we live in, do you know how much of an increase we've had? I mean, I know mental health is has increased like crazy, right? But what percentage of levels like of people would you know that have they're either on depression, like they have, medicine for depression or anxiety, like versus really trying to like, use a book like this or like figure out the root of the problem because I feel like that's the first thing that's just, I don't know, we've been programmed to, or we don't know better, but now people like you are educating us more. I mean, how much has it gone to the worst level? Like how much of an increase have we had? Because it's worrisome for me.
Yeah, I agree with what you said earlier in this conversation about how if we're not feeling stressed, we're probably not paying attention. And so there's a level of, I wonder, dissociation or suppression. Maybe we're zombied out. I mean, the number of people that are on antidepressant medications has skyrocketed. We know that for some people they can be helpful, but the reason why was totally debunked in
Mm-hmm.
2022. Yeah, you know about that. So for those who haven't heard about this, there's a chemical imbalance theory. So they thought, well, more serotonin, more happy, less serotonin, less happy. Therefore, your depression and anxiety is a serotonin problem. We can fix that with a serotonin boosting drug like an antidepressant. They did this big meta analysis. It turns out that that's not true at all. There's actually no correlation between mood and serotonin. There's another variable involved. And so if somebody isn't stressed about what's happening in the world right now, they're probably either like really doing the work and they notice the stress, they acknowledge it, and they have a process, a ritual, a routine for managing it, or we're probably just not paying attention or we're dissociated. So I think that the content in this book, it teaches you how to think. And this is rooted in traditional wisdom from Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine, naturopathic medicine, and the research is substantiating it. And so even if you don't identify as having anxiety, just look at it as yuck, look at it as activation, and use the techniques to figure out what your activation is telling you in particular. A lot of people, they don't think that they're anxious, they don't feel worried, but they get angry. And I would argue that fight, flight, freeze, the fight,
Mm-hmm.
the anger is anxiety, but we want to meet people where you are. And so I think this book could be valuable for every person out there.
I totally agree. I really agree with you. Now, you mentioned in the book that there's 9 types of anxiety. What are some of
Mhm.
the most common ones? I mean, I was really surprised. I had no idea because I was looking through. I'm like, oh, wait, okay. Well, my stomach sometimes hurts with this. Okay, is this gut anxiety? Like I was going through, but what signals help us identify which type is active in our body? And just if you can just kind of summarize the most common ones.
Yeah. So this is really valuable for research where we can ask more interesting questions. Someone has gut anxiety, for example. Anxiety shows up, they get gas, they get bloating, they get irritable bowel syndrome that may have occurred as a result of trauma in their house, trauma to their house, a lack of whatever that house needed to be strong. And so doing gut specific testing might get answers that would be helpful for that person. And doing gut specific treatments, maybe psychobiotics or carminative herbs like chamomile, or maybe even doing a colonoscopy and making sure that there isn't something going on, especially as we hit our 40s, 50s, and older. Versus if you have thought anxiety, this is anxiety that shows up in the thoughts. So those are us who overanalyze everything,
Hmm.
who future trip, those who may identify with ADHD symptoms. ADHD is often rooted in anxiety, or whose minds go completely blank. Because I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but it happens to me where someone will ask me a question and I'm just like, I can't brain today. What? And so,
Yes, the foggy brain. It
yeah,
happens lately.
especially in perimenopause,
Yes.
brain fog is real. And so brain focused strategies may be more valuable. So I'm thinking about maybe talk therapy if your anxiety is stemming from thoughts. Or I'm thinking, is there inflammation in the brain? What is my blood brain barrier like? What am I doing in terms of restoring health to the brain, especially if I've taken medications? These are called trophoreceptors. And
Mm-hmm.
so, brain specific treatments, brain specific testing. So we have the thoughts, we have muscles, which is nervous system anxiety, we have the gut, we have the chest, heart and lungs, we have endocrine anxiety like thyroid we talked about earlier, our sex hormones, our cortisol. We have immune system anxiety, could be related to histamines or mast cells, which is a huge problem after COVID. And we have trauma anxiety. We talked about trauma,
Mm-hmm.
anger anxiety, the fight of fight, flight, freeze, and then depressive anxiety, where we can feel hopeless and despairing, as well as activated, restless, and fearful. I think that was all 9 of them.
Yes. And when you read the book, it has detailed information so you can really understand each anxiety really thoroughly. So I really learned a lot about that. And kind of you can checklist yourself and see what symptoms you're having. Where do you land for if you have anxiety? Now, Dr. Cain, if you, with the nonstop nature of the news cycle today, I think that's important to address. How can people set boundaries around news consumption that support their mental and emotional well being? Because there's so much going on all over the world.
Yeah. I actually just talked to my husband about this. I feel like we have to recommit ourselves because when things are coming at us, it's we have to actively protect ourselves. And I love neuroscience. So let's talk about for those who are the like prove it to meers, this is what's going on is we have a group of areas in our brain and they collectively work together to create the filter. Think of like if you're putting pasta in a filter and running water through it.
Hmm.
And that salience network, its job is to figure out if some sort of a stimulus inside our body or outside of our body is it relevant or not. If that is overwhelmed with tons and tons of data that it can't process, it's too much data. When in doubt, send it on. And so then that salience network will send the signal onto the amygdala that says, we're really overwhelmed. We don't know if there's something dangerous in here. Here you go. The amygdala is the emotional processing part of the brain. Amy, the amygdala. Amy has big feelings, right? Amy's like, oh my gosh, this is way too much. When in doubt, send it on. So Amy automatically will activate what's called the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which then results in stress hormone being released. And then there's a whole domino effect that can occur as a result of high stress hormone, one of which is that we get anxious, right? And so, how does this happen? This can happen when we're just playing video games. This can happen when we're looking at our device and we're not rotating our head and our body is getting flooded with information. This is when we get push notifications. Every time we turn our heads and
Ah,
look at something, there's a push notification. I have to work so hard to turn all these news push notifications off. I'm like, how did you get through? Now perplexities
they
feed
keep
the
coming
news.
through, though. It's ridiculous. Or the telemarketing calls, the spam
Oh
calls.
my gosh. It's all stimulation to the brain, body, and nervous system. And our we don't genetically evolve very quickly as humans. And so 6 generations back, we didn't have any of this technology. We knew what was happening in our local community to the people that we talked to, and that was mostly it. And so, in a short span of time, the information network has skyrocketed. So,
Hmm.
biologically, you don't have to be convinced about the content, but biologically, the human nervous system is not evolved and equipped to handle all the stimulation. So, no matter what you're consuming, it's too much. Secondarily, is the actual content itself. Not only is it written and designed to be attention grabbing,
Hmm.
fear intensifying. It's clickbait. It makes us want to obsess and read more and more and more. And we're getting these dopamine hits. And then when we put it away, we get withdrawal, which feels awful. So we keep consuming more and more and faster and faster. And so we have to put literal, actual, tangible boundaries in place. and decide for ourselves. Number one is, what media do I want to consume? When do I want to consume it, and how do I want to consume it? So I personally, I like the BBC. That's one of
Yeah.
my favorite news sources. And so I decided that I would turn off all the push notifications. I'm not going to watch TV on cable. I'm not going to watch the news. I'm not going to go to those news sources. I unfollow news sites on Instagram. I just want to look at like cat videos and like house
Happy stuff.
decorations, happy stuff. And then I designate, I'm going to get on the BBC and just see what I want to look at. You could do that with whatever your news source is, and sit down in a place where you can be calm and grounded and in your logical brain and intentionally consume the information. Not when you're standing at the counter hoovering down food, not when you're driving in the car. Create a time when you can try to be parasympathetic with logical brain on, because if you're emotionally activated and emotional brain is on, logical is not there, and what you're consuming is going to hit you differently. So, I'm curious about your favorite hack. That's kind of mine, Pearl, but what do you do?
I think one of the biggest things is before I remember I like get up, like you're saying, the notifications, like it was like CNN, everything. First thing in the
Mm-hmm.
morning, it's like 6 o'clock. I'm just trying to like turn off my alarm. It's like
Mm-hmm.
notification. This happened. This has happened with the election. This happened with this. I was like, wait. Like this is not the first thing I want to know. So I turn all those off. And now it's kind of like it just goes to my email. It's like the five top news, like, whatever
Mm-hmm.
source, but it's really important. And I know everyone does it. It's like that first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
I choose to write in my gratitude journal. Like, I'm not going to choose to go and look at the news and already just start this day in a very negative way, whatever is happening in the world, and the end of the night. I just think it's really frightening. Like watching, like CNN at the before you're going to go to bed. I'd rather watch some funny sitcom that's gonna just make me
Mm-hmm.
feel good, and then it's like, okay, it's a rerun of something I like, and then I'm going to read, and I'm going to go to bed. So I think that's really important because I think most people, because of this phone that's so accessible to us, where before you just had a TV or you had the newspaper and you would just could put it away. But now it's because like I know my mom is like this, and I went on a trip with her and we were sharing a room, and it was just she couldn't sleep and she'd wake up in the middle of the night. I'm like, what are you doing? I would see like a little light by her bed, but she's trained herself. That's how she can go back to sleep, which I think is horrible, but she's not alone. It's majority of the people, this is how they've trained themselves, like these teenagers that have their phones on them, and when they get to, like, you can control it to a certain level, like a certain age. But it's like I have a senior in high school and a junior in college. It's not like we can collect their phones anymore. So what are you going to do? Like they're the ones that it's like, oh, they're under the covers looking at the last second every TikTok, and they're getting a lot of news from TikTok too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they're going to bed. That's how they program. That's what just scares me because it's kind of like out of our control anymore. Like these are habits that we're hoping that these next generations that can teach themselves, because there's only so much we can do as parents.
Yeah, that's the construction of their house, right? These are the walls and the floorboards, as opposed to someone passing through. This is the generation as they're growing up very differently.
It's very different. And I tried
Yeah.
until the very last, moment that I could. I had those like down, restrictions and screen time and limit the phone time, downtime, or social media time. But there's a certain time that they're an adult, and you have to trust that they're going to know what's best for them, and that's all you can do.
I think that's really wise. And maybe, some teens, my nephew is 18 and he just switched to, he calls it a dumb phone, because he felt like, I can't control myself. I'm too impulsive with this smartphone. And then he has a computer from his high school that if he wants to browse the internet and look at TikTok and things, he can log on from his computer. But for him, that sense of pressure to be on the apps and things is better. And so some kids, maybe they'll make that decision as they
Decision
get
on their
older.
own.
I hope so. I
I hope
mean,
so. I've heard kids that like they go to college or they're graduate college and they start to like they delete the Snapchat app or they like
yeah,
limit themselves or they just want to do stuff for work on social media. So
yeah.
I'm hoping that, people just have to find their way themselves because it's not something we can enforce. I've loved talking to you and just to be respectful of your time. I just have to say in this conversation, you have unpacked such a powerful reframe that like anxiety isn't the problem, it's really a signal. So, drawing from both your personal experience and your clinical work, you have invited us to see anxiety not as something to silence or suppress, but as the body's intelligent way of pointing to where healing is needed, which is so important. You have explained how anxiety manifests differently in each of us, why these patterns are learned rather than fixed, and why true healing requires addressing the root cause and not just managing our symptoms. And again, I'm going to just end with a part from the short part from your book again, because I just thought at the very end, I loved how the reason that you started and that last, your patient that was graduating, but it says, you are capable of incredible healing. And I want every listener to really think about this. By listening to the wisdom of your mind and body, you can truly heal. Not just get by, but you can thrive and be strong and be amazing and be glorious, the sparkly soul that you are. You can be panic proof. So, in this crazy world that we live in, I just feel like this is a really good way to end this episode for anyone who's dealing with anxiety out there. That there is a solution. There is a healing work that you can do. And Dr. Cain is amazing. I'm going to leave all her information in my show notes so you can follow up. And if you want to contact her or purchase her book, is there anything else you would like to share with us before we end this episode?
I'm so grateful for what you shared and for the opportunity to be here. And so my handles are all Dr. Nicole Cain. So wherever Dr. Nicole Cain is, I will be. And I'd love to interact with y'all.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for spending this time with me here on Female Fluence, where we rise, reflect, and remember who we are. If something from today's episode spoke to you, share it with another woman who's ready to rise too. And before you go, download your free empowerment coaching guide at femalefluence.com. It's your next step toward living with more clarity and confidence. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at pearlmashure_femalefluence. And if you're ready for deeper support, sign up for a free discovery call. I would love to connect with you. Remember, my friends, don't just exist. Live your life fully, bravely, and in truth. I'm Pearl Mashure, and until next time, stay true, stay powerful, and stay you.